Is Eddie Quest?
Hello, welcome back to YCFT. We know the Christmas decks are still up.
Yeah.
We batch film things, and
Well in
this is
advance.
actually the last thing that we filmed in 2022, so we wanted to have a bit of a break,
Yes.
of the Christmas season, so
we're
they'll be
ahead of the
gone
curve.
for next week. So just accept that they're up, deal with it. I don't want any comments about the Christmas deck still being up. But this week we are looking at The Howling, released in 1981, directed by the relatively unknown director Joe Dante.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, this was the film that got him noticed by Steven Spielberg, and literally he credits this as what got him the Gremlins gig.
It's true.
For that mixture of
True.
horror and comedy.
Yeah.
Very, very famous werewolf movie, this one, but I don't feel like enough people talk about it.
In comparison to maybe another werewolf movie that came out in the same year.
Yeah, An American Werewolf in London, that's why I've got this here.
Yes.
We've got Scott McCall from Teen Wolf here just because he was around.
Werewolf.
Werewolf.
All our werewolf merch.
Werewolf. Famous special effects artist Rick Baker
Yes.
initially started working on this film.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in a lot of his work, but he left when John Landis asked him to come work on American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Also then became Oscar-winning werewolf transformation.
Yes.
You can see, so he's credited as a special effects consultant. And you can see it in the snout stretches. It's very similar. What was the name of the special effects artist?
It's a guy called Rob Bottin for this movie, who I think initially was an assistant.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job.
Oh, he really
Overall,
did.
It's debated what film has the better transformation, because that was a great year for werewolf movies.
Yeah.
A lot of people I'd say these two are the two best transformations.
They're both memorable in their own way.
Yeah. And
Really.
as much as American Werewolf in London feels more realistic, I'm going to go with it's just on a whole other level. This film, it's visceral. It lasts a very long time. And even when it looks like cheap or rubbery in parts, you can't stop watching it.
No, it's gnarly.
It's gnarly. And there's lots of bubbling, there's oozing, God, it goes on for so long. But they do it multiple times, and there's multiple full werewolves. And I always think in American Werewolf in London, the werewolf is lacking at the very end. It's like all the time and budget went into that one scene.
Yeah.
So what this film actually tried to do is way more of a task.
Bigger scale.
Having multiple werewolves.
Yeah, definitely.
We all see them in varying degrees of transformation, varying quality, but that's a lot to try and undertake for 1.3 million?
1.5 million.
1.5, and how well did it do?
It did all right. It made $17.9 million ultimately.
Yeah.
So, it was
did
successful.
Okay. And memorable, spawned 7 sequels and a rework is in the work.
Yeah.
By Netflix, actually, Andy Muschietti.
Andy Muschietti from It. He also directed Mama. So, that's... I'm very, very intrigued by that.
I've only partially watched one of the sequels, 2011's
I've not seen any.
The Howling Reborn. I couldn't finish it. It's really bad. But I'm curious about the sequels.
All seven. All seven of them.
7 of them.
Yeah.
But so it stars Dee Wallace, and do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of the plot? Obviously, she's a bit of a scream queen in her own right.
She is, the legendary Dee Wallace, very well known in horror circles. So the basic plot is she plays a newscaster, very famous newscaster for this news programme. And she's being stalked by a known serial killer from the town. He's kind of honed in on her character. She's called Karen. And a setup is initiated where she's going to go, she's sort of booby-trapped and she's wired and everything, so the people, her co-workers can keep an eye on her, keep tabs on her. But it's a setup to try and capture Eddie. So they agree to meet at this point.
Eddie Quist.
Eddie Quist, who's played by a certain actor that we'll talk about in a second. And the first 10 minutes of the film is where she ends up going to meet him at this designated spot, which also happens to be a CD porn theatre.
Which, due to budgetary reasons, was just a real porn shop.
It was an actual porn shop.
And Dee Wallace was really uncomfortable
apparently
in there.
So, yeah.
Which, fair, we just thought she was acting, but...
I just thought she was acting, but apparently she did not like being in that environment, which, fair enough. So anyway, she goes and she meets Eddie. He forces her to watch this really brutal, almost snuff film of a woman being horribly raped. And he tells her he can't look at her initially, but then he says, okay, now you can turn around and you can see me. We don't see what she sees, but it's enough to absolutely petrify her. Eddie, the police arrive on the scene. Eddie is gunned down. And Karen is absolutely traumatised by what's happened, but she also starts suffering from amnesia. She can't quite recall what actually happened in that room with Eddie. And that's kind of how the story is kick-started. And because the trauma is ongoing, it's not getting any easier. She goes to see this famed psychiatrist who's played by the legendary Patrick Macnee. And he suggests, you should go to this place called the Colony, which is like a retreat.
It's his colony, isn't it?
It's his own colony that he goes to, and he recommends for severely traumatised patients. So she and her husband Bill, they go, and just like weird freaky shit starts happening.
It's a colony of werewolves.
Turns out it's a colony of wolves.
Yes. I actually really enjoyed the plot of this film. It's quite like that initial set.
Yeah.
There's sex. This is a very sexy movie. There's a lot of sex and sexuality involved
very
in it.
Kind of carnal, and like it's very like when you think about wolves though, I mean it makes total sense. They're animals. It's like everything is going to be unbridled. It's going to be very visceral. It's going to be savage.
I found it really interesting just as a look of women in the workplace, because the initial response when she's having issues after this encounter is, the workmates or boss is very just dismissive of it.
Yeah, her male
sees it as not very professional that she's struggling to just get over this encounter.
Yeah, and then there's a scene. Her lead producer is very unsympathetic, and when it's clear that she clearly isn't ready to return to work, he's there's no sensitivity from him. He accuses her of not being a pro. Let's just get someone else in, someone with a pretty face to replace her. That's very much the attitude and the work environment that she's dealing with. Although she does have some friends in work. Yeah,
those themes and other themes we'll get onto a bit later. But a certain very famous film producer has a cameo.
Yeah.
When she has to go to the phone booth to wait for a call from Eddie. Eddie also has his calling card is like a sticker of a smiley face.
Yeah, he tends to leave them wherever.
Which also appears in Gremlins on the fridge.
Yeah, a little nod.
Which I quite like. But the man who's waiting to use the phone booth after her is Roger Corman.
Yeah, the legend.
Very, very famous film producer.
Yeah.
Still alive today. A lot of famous directors today went through the Roger Corman Film School, which basically you work on a film with him. It's a crash course. Like Joe Dante did. James Cameron. Dick Miller, who is a very, very famous bit part actor, is in this and in all of Joe Dante's films. We saw him recently in Chopping Mall, which was a Roger Corman one. Mm-hmm. So I think that was just like a nod out of respect to
I think so.
him and the amount of people he's brought into the industry.
Yeah,
I really like that.
I love that. I love that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So they get to the convent and her partner is played by Dee Wallace's real life partner.
Yeah, it's an actor called Christopher Stone. So they were actually engaged at the time, which is really, really sweet. And they play on-screen husband and wife. And Bill, that's the character's name, he is attacked one evening by a wolf. He's not bitten, but he is clawed. He is
I think he is bitten, isn't he?
Oh, is he bitten? No, I just thought it was
no,
attack.
He's
bitten. And, starts exhibiting unusual wolf-like behaviour. For one thing, he's a vegetarian, and then there's a scene where he's just snacking away on like a massive chicken drumstick or something. So Bill, we all know what's inevitably going to happen.
Yeah. Do you want to tell a little bit about their relationship outside of the film? Because I always find that was really interesting to learn about.
Oh, it was really sweet. So Dee Wallace and Christopher Stone. So they were engaged at the time of filming. They do eventually get married. They stayed married until 1995 when he passed away. A heart attack, I think, and she got into a different relationship. We are going back to 1995, remember, but he was the father of her daughter, and I found a really, really sweet interview where she's just kind of reminiscing of their relationship and their time together, and she basically just said that he was her soulmate, and she loved him dearly. Yeah, it was very, very sweet. But they play on-screen husband and wife in this.
That's right. I like that.
It is. It's
I think
really
explains
nice.
why they have such good chemistry. So,
they do have a lot of good chemistry.
Every night she's struggling to sleep. Essentially, she can't be intimate with her husband because of the trauma of what happened with Eddie, and she keeps hearing every night wolves and animals.
Yeah, howling
and people her husband after he's been bitten, he's kind of infected in ways that you wouldn't really expect. As a seemingly loyal partner, he is seduced by probably the sexiest werewolf in history, really.
Yeah.
She's pretty
Yeah.
sexy. And they have sex in the woods.
They do.
And it's very much like, how in control do you feel he is in that scene?
Yeah, it does almost
'Cause-
seem like he's under a spell of,
Yeah,
of some
some
kind.
sort of, like, pheromones. Because it's almost similar to like how she feels. Kathy, character, is it Kathy White?
Karen.
Karen White. See how she is in the very beginning with Eddie.
Yeah.
And does he even really remember what happens? But very famously, and why this is a very sexy movie, they turn into werewolves while they're having sex.
Yeah, it's like they have a transformation scene whilst having sex, and it's very visceral. It's very.
It's like you never really see werewolves as sexy characters. It's like that's usually reserved for the vampires.
Yeah.
But this, like, sex is a very big point. It's very animalistic.
Yeah. Bestial.
Yeah, and it's cool.
It is cool.
It is really cool. It's massive, unexpected. You do not see something like that coming.
No.
It does cut through a shot of them like in the wide way. It has to turn to like animation to show them in like full wolves silhouette, but that's just budget reasons.
There is another little bit of interesting trivia attached to that sex scene.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Brooks, who plays the Lady Wolf, I think her character's called Marcia.
Yeah.
In the film, and yeah, she's very sexy, like, you know, very mysterious, long black hair, long black dress, almost sort of Morticia.
I'm pretty sure
like,
she's introduced as an nymphomaniac at the beginning.
I think she is nymphomaniac. Yeah.
This colony full of strange people.
I think her name's Marcia Quist. So
Yeah.
she must be related to Eddie in some way. Sister, I can't remember if the film goes into that. Anyway, but she, in real life, she was very religious, and she did not want to do a sex scene. She certainly did not want to do a nude scene, but she was convinced into doing it because she was told that, don't worry, yes, you'll be nude, but there's going to be fog machines. It's going to be, it's going to be fine. Like, nothing is going to be on display that you don't want to be on display. So she said, okay, fair enough. There is a full frontal nude scene from her in this film. So I don't know if something went wrong with the effects, or if it's probably more likely that she was just lied to. Because you do see everything of Elizabeth Brooks. Elizabeth Brooks is very much on display here, and it's a very, I don't know, it's quite a not fairly graphic sex scene, I guess.
Yeah.
This film is still an 18.
And
probably, I think for that alone.
Probably for the sheer amount of like.
Yeah. And
there's not as much blood as I thought there would be, but there is a lot of nudity.
Lot of nudity. And anyway, she was not happy when she saw the final film, and she subsequently never did a nude scene again in any movie, or sex scene, I don't think, in any film again.
That's a shame. But it is a very iconic scene.
It is very iconic.
It's impossible to talk about this film without talking about sex and that scene, because have you ever seen anything else?
No.
I feel like it is kind of referenced in the BBC series Being Human, which a scene that you didn't get to.
No.
The two main characters who are werewolves do have sex at one point when they are wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets pregnant.
Baby wolf.
So I feel like that is a reference. I feel there's also something that Dog Soldiers reference.
Yeah, there's a scene
werewolf hand coming through the car, which it's been a very, very long time since I watched this movie.
Yeah.
So that was quite cool to rediscover. So after this night, Bill is different.
Yes.
I think Gene Tells has a claw mark on his back, which looked really cool when the effects on that.
Yeah.
He's more aggressive.
He is. His patience is gone with her at this point. He's no longer the kind, considerate, caring husband he once was.
Yeah.
And she notices the change.
Yeah, I like the side plot of her guns who are also reporters. They're chasing up, like, they're trying to do a bit on Eddie now that he's been
researching
gunned
him.
down.
Yeah.
So they go to his home and they see like he's a bit of an artist. Pictures of wolf men.
Yeah, he seems obsessed with werewolves.
Yeah, they go to the same psychiatrist, get him to analyze.
Yeah.
The drawings. They then go to check out the body. The body is gone.
Eddie has disappeared from the morgue.
Yeah. There's claw marks on the inside of the freezer, I guess you call it.
Yeah, I don't know what you call them, but yeah, wherever the bodies are stored, like they're always like lockers, like filing
So to follow on
cabinets.
this bit, I know you said at the time that they seem to come to the werewolf conclusion quite quickly, but I feel like when you follow their path, like, all right, we know his name, he's obsessed with werewolves, he's escaped from the mortuary. I don't think at that point they believe he's a werewolf, but I think for the story, looking into werewolves.
That makes sense. Like they're doing the due diligence, so they start researching into werewolves.
That's where we meet Dick Miller as the bookstore clerk.
Yeah, who's got a great little cameo. Interestingly, Dick Miller said that this was his favourite performance of all his films that he was ever in.
Yeah,
he really.
I do like him in that.
Yeah,
one.
he loved doing this.
We got to see some great old books with like very, very famous depictions of werewolves in there that you see all over the internet. And so when you basically find out in this film that fire and silver bullets are the only way to kill a werewolf. If you kill one with regular bullets or regular means, they will just pop up alive again.
Yeah.
I think that's when one of the guy, I can't remember his name. He doesn't instantly believe it's werewolves, but she does.
Yeah.
She now kind of thinks, oh, where's the body gone?
Yeah. So there's she's called Terry, and she also, I think she's like a co-producer on the news show because she's good friends with Karen, and Christopher is her boyfriend who also works at the news station. And yeah, Terry especially realises that there must be a connection between Eddie and the colony where Karen has gone to stay, because one of the paintings or drawings that Eddie has on the wall, she realises is from this little place wherever the colony is. So she goes, she meets up with Karen.
I like it, because at the bookstore, they even asked him, do you believe in all this stuff? And he's like, I make too much of a business, so it doesn't matter if I believe in it.
It doesn't matter.
He's like, I've got everything. Like,
it makes
everything. He has like
so
loads of like witchcrafty stuff that people want to buy. Look, silver bullets, someone ordered them in. Never came to collect them.
Yeah.
Obviously, they'll be used
yes.
a bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he visits Karen in the colony because she, again, is freaked out by what's going on.
She's very freaked out. She's worried about her husband.
Does a bit of investigating and finds that Eddie used to live there.
Yes.
You see the same drawings, and she's attacked by a werewolf. Again, we don't see the werewolf in full. We see a bit of a snout, bit of an arm.
It's a great introduction, though, to that.
Yeah,
werewolf.
that's when she's like, oh my god, werewolves are real.
Yeah, it's great. It's like she's going through the filing cabinet in the doctor's office, and like the wolf hands her, I think, like one of the files. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I think she looks up.
Early on, after she's on the phone, where the werewolf's claws on the answering machine.
Yeah.
It's so... That is so good. But her first encounter of one, she hacks an arm off with an axe.
She does, actually, yeah. She does.
And it's a really cool feeling, so it slowly turned back into a human hand.
It's also interesting because first time I've seen a werewolf around during the day.
Yeah, that is a big point of this song. It's not just the full moon. They say, Dick Miller says this.
Yeah.
He says a true lycanthrope can transform whenever they want.
Whenever they want.
And yeah, werewolf during the day.
They're not bound by the moon. So this film does play by typical werewolf rules in a lot of ways, but it also kind of creates its own.
It's also like, is it going back to werewolf rules that are older than the Wolfman?
The Wolfman. Yeah, like pre-Hollywood.
Pre-Hollywood.
Yeah, so that's very cool.
When we first see a werewolf there in full form.
Yeah.
Massive ears, that's what they are.
Yeah, that's what, like, the most definitive feature. The ears are huge, like really pointy. Yeah.
And it looks great. They got like probably like dog-like legs.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're very careful not to show them in full. The one time we do see them in full, it's animated.
Yeah.
But when you see them in cuts, you can see how good the costume actually looks in. I think I pointed this out to you when we were watching it. Again, looking at the themes of sex, rape, sexual assault that are constant throughout this movie. Both times we see a werewolf transformation, they are forcing themselves on a woman. Not sexually, but they are confronting a woman in a very aggressive way. And it's almost like, as I saw it, considering what the beginning of the film is, it's like it's meant to represent someone being assaulted.
Like desire, lust.
The lust, that animalistic, like, uncontrollable.
Yeah.
But then feeling completely defenseless in that situation, because all they can really do in that situation is, they can't do anything. They're powerless against this creature. And it to me, I know I may not be articulating this very well.
But you are.
Those two scenes, because we see it with her friend and we see it with Dee Wallace.
Yeah.
Like in a later scene, but in both of those scenes, they are women in very vulnerable situations and they can't do anything to stop themselves from their attacker. And I think just because the previous victims, women, and I think that is meant to represent like essentially the danger.
I think so
for women in real life.
I also think as well that correlates too, because I don't think we find out this for certain, but I think that when Bill is attacked by a wolf, I think that's Marcia. Yeah. The one that wants him. Like, she set her sights on this man, and like the bite and the attack is sexual kind of desire. It's frenzy. It's she's targeted him specifically because she wants him.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
The same
definitely
as
a
like
connection.
Eddie targets.
The women that he wants.
Yeah.
The women that he has his eyes on.
So eventually-
Yeah, for sure.
Eddie does return. He's
Yeah.
got a couple of bullet holes in his head.
Alright, so we got to talk about Eddie, guys.
Yeah. He's played by.
Robert motherfucking Picardo.
Also, he did appear in another very famous Joe Dante film, Small Soldiers.
Yeah, he's worked with
We mostly know
Joe
him because
quite
we
a
are
lot.
deep. We are deep into Star Trek Voyager at the minute, and he very famously played the Doctor.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. The opening credits were an absolute treat for me. I mean, first of all, I saw the name Slim Pickens, and that just made me howl. I have no idea who this person is, but I mean, come on, how could like the Slim Pickens? Okay. Then I saw Patrick McNee, who I love because he was in an old TV show, a 60s TV show called The Avengers, which was like a British spy comedy
That
drama
show
series.
that show is the reason why Disney's Avengers was called Avengers Assemble in the UK, because they didn't want to get it mixed up with that
didn't
show.
want to get it mixed up. Oh, I absolutely loved it. Big fan of that. So to see him was wonderful. And then I saw the name Robert Picardo appear, and it was just like triple threat. It was brilliant, and he is really good actually.
He's fantastic in this.
The transformation scene we were talking about, it belongs to him.
Yeah.
And
That's when he is again. That's forcing himself. He has found her, and you very much get the idea because of that in that beginning scene, he was starting to transform with a change of voice.
yeah,
And maybe that's why she can't remember it, just because she's traumatized by what she was seeing.
I agree with you. I also think that the connection you make there, like the whole sexual element to the biting and the attacks, there's also something weirdly like pseudo-sexual about the fact that I think he's enjoying the fact that she's watching him transform.
Yeah.
Like he's actually, as painful and as gnarly as it is, I think he's kind of secretly getting off on that.
He didn't transform for a friend.
No.
Well, who do you think it is in that scene? Do you think that's Eddie, or
I think it could.
could it be the Doctor?
Could it be the Doctor?
Like the psychiatrist, because it's his office.
It is his office. Could be the Doctor.
Yeah, and Eddie is fully clothed when we next see him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it could.
But
be
that
the
transformation it's gnarly, and it goes on for
It
and all she can do,
is just watch.
all Karen
like,
can
in
do
fear,
is watch in fear.
Like
She has lost all control.
transfixed.
She has
by,
no power
No.
in that situation,
No.
and it's like an assault.
It is like an assault.
An attempted assault.
Yeah, it's like
on her.
the power that he probably feels over her in that moment is definitely sexual. Like it's definitely heightened.
Yeah.
All of his emotions in that scene, and yeah, it is. It's almost like even as the viewers, because it goes on for so long, it's like we're watching something we shouldn't be watching. It's almost like a weirdly like private moment.
Yeah.
Like you feel almost voyeuristic in watching it for that long. Like
Yeah.
we should be intervening here, but we can't.
In that
We're just
moment,
gonna
you
watch
kinda,
it happen.
Confronts her fears, and I think she throws sulfuric acid over him.
She does, yeah. Which actually, does. She manages to get away.
Yeah.
It stalls him.
When we
long
later
enough.
see him,
Oh.
what's the other character called again?
Christopher
Yeah, when Christopher arrives,
confronts him.
he's got the silver bullets. And we see him in human form again. His face is just destroyed.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
gnarly. But this is when she comes to the full realization that the whole convent, or the whole
Colony.
the whole colony is werewolves,
Yeah.
led by the psychiatrist.
Led by the doctor.
And it's like he
The one that
brought.
recommended her
Yeah,
to
he
go.
recommended she go there.
Yeah.
He's expanding
See,
his colony.
it's interesting because
I keep calling it. Yeah, it is colony. Isn't it?
colony. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like his whole sort of philosophy is that we're all wolves and we all need to sort of stick together. And he's
Like a
very
pack.
much like a pack. Yeah, he's kind of like the head honcho. And obviously he understands and he recognizes that they all need to kill in order to survive. But he also very much like wants to establish order. There's rules here, and at the very end, like as it's kind of destined to happen, you're gonna get people that rebel, and they end up going against him because he wants Dee Wallace in the pack. I think very much like he was happy to accept her husband in the pack as well, but they have other ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're hungry.
They are just hungry. Yeah. They want her as food. And so they rebel against him. And he has a very interesting death scene
Yeah,
in the
because
movie as well.
yeah, spoilers.
Spoilers.
God,
We're
it's
going to
a very,
spoilers.
very famous
Yeah,
movie, this
definitely.
one. I think even with the spoilers, it's worth watching, but we can't talk about it without talking about
Yeah.
the end, because I've got another point that I really want to.
I want to talk about the ending,
Hammer
like
home.
the very end.
A couple of them, I was like, when he started saying, I've got silver bullets, and one was like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
He does have silver
He
bullets.
does have silver bullets, and guess what? They work.
They work. And it doesn't seem to be, because a lot of times it's silver bullet to the heart, but one of them kind of got shot in the side and just died.
Down, yeah.
The doctor is killed, and his final words were, thank God.
He lets it happen.
He does not, I get that he does not want to be a werewolf. He's sick of living.
Thank God.
I think he also realizes in that moment he's lost control. Like, there are too many of his pack that are rebelling against him. He knows he's not going to have the same order.
Meant to represent youth rebelling against
authority
in the 80s.
100%. Yeah, it's actually quite. Yeah, it was just.
Because there's also a couple of elves that are a bit older who want to stick to the old ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. Very, very interesting.
Again, we get lots of. It's the eyes they have are massive. Must have been really painful to wear. So we see like lots of various degrees of werewolf transformation in that, and it's so cool.
It is. It is.
Yeah. I absolutely love that whole sequence.
Yeah, it's great.
Obviously, they try to escape by car, and they're obviously constantly getting attacked, and they don't kill all the wolves.
They don't. No, a few of them do survive. One of them unfortunately gets into the back seat of their car.
Yeah.
And gets Dee Wallace, takes a bit of a chunk out of her shoulder.
She gets bitten.
And it turns out it was her husband.
Yeah, because it's really cool. She kind of just shoots backwards. And
yeah.
I'm assuming it's in the face because we don't see the face in his body. We just see his tattoo.
Yeah.
That scene, I always see the way they show the werewolf, like the lycanthrope curse, as almost like an STD or AIDS.
Well, it's an infection.
Just the infection, just the way it's like, but it's like most people in this film get it from a lover.
Yes. Yeah.
Like obviously Bill gets it from, his forbidden lover. She gets it
Passes
from
it
Bill.
On to his wife.
Yeah, it's very much like you would get an STD.
Yes. Yeah.
Or it's like Bill has essentially cheats on her, catches a disease, and then passes it into his real relationship.
And that has dire consequences
There's
for
dire
her
consequences for her as well as him. It's like she's trapped in this curse, kind of like AIDS.
There's a strong analogy for it. I mean, the thing too is like this film was released in 1981, so I don't know that particular part of history well enough to know exactly when the AIDS, the worry and the concern about it started. I know it was early 80s, but could have
just to be STDs in general, but
yeah.
Again, just because of how
could have played into that.
How woven sex is into this story.
Very much so.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It would make sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
it's all about want and desire and consent.
And consent.
Consent and having the right to give consent taken away from you.
Yeah, very few people are bitten by a werewolf consensually.
Yeah.
Very few people have a choice in that matter, which leads on to an interesting speech that she gives at the very end.
Yeah, she goes back to work. She's on the news. She knows what she's about to do here. She wants to tell the world.
Yeah.
She goes off script, and do you want me to reveal it?
Yeah.
Spoilers. She turns into a werewolf on the news.
Live on
the news. And is then gunned down.
And is then gunned
by
down
a friend.
By Christopher, who also knows what's going to happen. They've made a plan.
An amazing shot of partially transformed with a tear going down her eyes.
Yeah.
And
it's a really...
we cut to people watching the news and people just don't believe it.
Yeah.
Obviously the people in the room believe what's going on, but people... It kind of shows our inability to accept when big things happen. Like sometimes when we see massive things and there's always people think, that's fake.
It's just publicity.
It's just TV.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing what practical effects or special effects do. Yeah. It's like, I've had to nod at what they've managed to achieve in the film.
Yeah, more than likely.
But it's heartbreaking scene.
It really is, because especially when you consider the speech that she delivers leading up to it. So obviously, your newscasters, they read off the autocue, and she very much has her own little farewell speech essentially. And in it, she talks a lot about, the autonomy of the body and how it's one of the few luxuries in life that we have. We're in total control of our bodies, what we do. But she basically, I'm paraphrasing a lot, but she basically says that, every now and then we fall into a situation where that control and that autonomy is taken away.
Yeah, leading back to the themes we've
Abs-
talked about previously.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it could be interpreted as being bitten by a werewolf or something else.
Because she's putting herself out there, revealing something awful that has happened to her, it's kind of like when an assault victim comes forward and they literally make themselves a target.
Yeah.
Okay, she is literally a target because she knows she's about to get shot as well.
She knows she's going to die.
When a victim comes forward, a lot of the time they end up putting themselves under scrutiny and becoming a target. And that is what she is doing in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very much like the film starts with a sexual assault and it ends with, coming out about it.
Yeah, and like when we see moments of it in the immediate aftermath of the different people watching the news. Like some people believe it's real, other people are like, nah, it's fake.
Yeah.
In the same way that a victim comes forward and like
some people believe, some people don't.
Some people don't. Yeah, same thing. It is very sad. It's
very complicated, like very complex, layered plot for
it's
a cheesy,
bleak
quite
ending.
funny werewolf movie.
Yeah, but I love the opening of the film. I kind of just like seeing like behind the scenes of like TV programs and films. I love like stuff about the making of something. So the whole opening was wonderful for me. I love that. I love the whole like almost honey trap situation that they have trying to get Eddie. And then to kind of come full circle, and we end the film back in the newsroom as well.
Yeah, where it all started.
Oh, and like the whole thing is when after the whole thing with Eddie, after the setup with Eddie, and she, her first day back on the news, and her producer sort of takes her to one side, and he's like, "Oh, babe, we're gonna make headlines here. Like everyone's gonna be tuning in to see you tonight. The survivor of Eddie Quist." She does make headlines.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the way that he wanted, but she eventually will make headlines. Yeah. She'll make that news station famous for sure.
There's actually a post-credit scene in this film as well.
Oh yeah, there is, because throughout the film we sort of see various characters are watching clips of the Wolfman from, is it the 40s that film was made? And we end the film, the final post-credit scene is where the gypsy character goes to Lon Chaney Jr. and says, like, there's nothing really that we can do, or something like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, just talking to him about the curse of being a wolf, and then it ends. One
thing, characters throughout the film are also named after famous directors who directed werewolf movies. Like I think the most famous one would be the Doctor's last name is Wagner. That's the last name of the guy who directed the Wolfman.
Of the Wolfman.
Which I felt was really cool.
I love that too. Yeah.
It's like, for such an influential film, I'm surprised more people don't talk about it today.
I am as
But
well.
Is it just that overshadowed by this guy here?
I think it was overshadowed. I mean,
but I think like plot-wise, I think this has a far more complex plot than what that does.
Definitely does. I mean,
like this film it's mainly about survivor guilt.
Yeah, there's no comedy in the Howling. There's
there's bits of humour in it
there's
until it gets serious.
Humor, but I mean, American Werewolf in London, there's a lot more comedy.
Yeah.
In that one, Howling is, I think, overall has a much more sort of serious tone.
And I love both of them. They're both very, very different films.
They are. Yeah, they are.
And the Howling lends itself to sequels.
Well, yeah.
Lots of sequels where we know American Werewolf got a very unlinked, dreadful sequel. But the Howling, I think, if anything, I think it would make, like Teen Wolf, I think it would make a great TV series.
Yeah.
And if anything, I definitely think Teen Wolf was inspired by it.
Well, I also just want to say, just on that, just whilst you mentioned Teen Wolf, is that the early 80s, especially the first half of the 80s, big on werewolf movies and TV shows. So, I mean, 1980, we get The Monster Club, which is not all round a werewolf movie, but there is a werewolf in it. We get Night of the Werewolf that same year. We get American Werewolf in London the year after. A film called The Beast Within in 1982. The Company of Wolves in 84. Teen Wolf in 1985. We get Silver Bullet in 1985. And obviously the Howling sequels. Oh, and also in 1981 there was another film called Wolfen. So yeah, lots of werewolf.
And even they continued even into the 90s with
into the 90s.
Jack Nicholson's Wolf.
Yeah,
early 2000s with Underworld.
Yeah, it was they were big in the 80s, and then I feel like in the latter half of the 80s we get vampires.
Yeah, I was like with like switch. I feel like recently werewolves have been done to be much more sexy. When we've seen them in TV, they've become quite sexy. Kind of like vampires were always seen as quite sexy, but now I talked about this in like a Fright Night video.
Yeah.
Vampires have become much more monstrous. So it's almost like they flipped.
Yeah. There's something to be said. Just
and it's
about,
almost like the
carnal
werewolf
desire.
is considered like a. To be honest, usually a werewolf is kind of like looked at almost like a period. It's a problem you've got to deal with once a month, but you have to deal with it.
Yeah, got to deal with the after effects of that.
I always like
all the emotions.
I always like how they
with it.
dealt with it in Being Human. It was a really good conversation where the vampire character says to werewolf is like, you could lead a normal life if you want. You have to deal with your thing once a month. You're like, I'm a monster all day, every day. And I always thought that was a really interesting conversation. Like, there is no reason why a werewolf can't be normal, have a normal life, but a vampire is forever going to struggle.
It's interesting too because I think it could have been in our pitch video where we, the werewolf of
Bedbug.
Yeah, I was going to say Bebenberg, and that's not
very different.
But I think we talked a little bit about how like the plight of the werewolf. Most werewolf movies, it's about the a character that's bitten again without their consent, who is cursed. Who does not want to be a wolf. They don't want to be a murderer. They don't revel in it. It literally is a curse, and unfortunately a lot of the time it ends in self-destruction, or they just accept that they have to die in order for the curse to be broken.
Yeah.
It's vampires.
It's a big theme in American Werewolf in London. He's got the ghost of his friend saying, you need to kill yourself.
You need to kill you gotta kill yourself, David. Gotta kill yourself. And then it's usually vampires. They're the undead that kind of revel in being the undead. They're the traditionally sexy, seductive ones, and just kind of live it up. Whereas in Howling, obviously we have literally a colony of wolves who are absolutely fine with it.
They can transform at will.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm right.
Maybe that's because they have the choice to be a wolf when they want to be a wolf.
Maybe. I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but it's certainly the first film that I've seen where there's a whole pack of wolves who are absolutely okay with it. Like there's no... Yeah. They're fine. They want to protect themselves. They just absolutely accept who they are.
Yeah, I don't want any comments about Twilight. I know there's a pack of wolves in that, but they're shapeshifters.
Yeah, and that
they're not
came
wolves.
Much after the Howling as well.
I really enjoyed rewatching this film, and
I did too.
I'll probably rewatch it
deeper
again.
than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, very complex.
Yeah.
Emotional plot.
Also only filmed in 28 days.
Yeah, that's including reshoots.
Including reshoots.
That is incredible.
Days. Yeah.
I think the initial Eddie's werewolf transformation was in Joe Dante's office.
It was, yeah.
That's amazing.
Robert Picardo had a lot to say about the makeup.
I can imagine.
He is not a fan, but we do get to see a shirtless Robert Picardo in this movie.
I love Robert Picardo.
This is what you were seeing with hair.
Yeah,
which was,
it's off-putting.
Not something I thought I'd ever see.
Well, he's a werewolf. He's covered in hair.
He's absolutely covered in it. But the character of Eddie.
Do you ever notice when characters have like really long hair, when they turn into a werewolf, mysteriously their long hair is gone?
It's gone. Yeah.
You never quite see what happens.
No.
I don't think anyone's ever wanted to tackle that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I did.
Would you ever look into the sequels?
I think I would. I don't know if I could ever commit to all 7. But I would definitely... Isn't Christopher Lee in one of them?
He's in the second one.
He's in the second one.
Apparently he apologised to Joe Dante on the set of Gremlins 2 about being in the inferior sequel to his film.
That says a lot to me already about the Howling 2.
Yeah. Apparently the Howling 3, the Marsupials, is meant to be a bit of a hidden gem.
Well, this is also based on a book, and I don't have the name of the author, but by all accounts, this is... The
book is meant to be much darker and harder to watch.
And I think
hard to
read. Joe Dante himself said that they massively improved on the book, so I don't think he was a big fan of the original source material either. But yeah, it was a good film.
I find it interesting that the front cover, the werewolf has very tiny ears.
Yes, that is mismarketing.
Yeah. Well, I love that. For a DVD, this restoration was fantastic.
Yeah.
I actually really want to get the Scream Factory Blu-ray now.
I'd like to know as well which people prefer, which transformation scene people prefer, because I think generally American Werewolf is more well known, more kind of in the public consciousness. But I mean, it is up for debate which one is better.
Yeah, but it's just amazing that both these films came out at the same time.
At the same time.
And they're so different.
Very, very different.
Very, very, very different.
Yeah.
Really cool. What a great year for werewolves. I'm ready for more werewolf films.
I think we'll be covering a few more werewolf movies.
Well, obviously, werewolves have started to make a bit of a comeback with Werewolf by Night. the MCU's
Oh.
movie. I really like that look. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's very classic Wolfman, but we didn't get this. We saw the transformation in silhouette.
Yeah.
I think today, with a mixture of practical effects and VFX, you could beat that transformation.
Well, aren't we getting a new werewolf movie with Ryan Gosling?
The Wolfman, yeah, I don't know what stage of production that's in at the minute.
It was
There's
announced
Lee
like a
Winnell.
few years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, Lee
Yeah.
Winnell, who recently did Invisible Man,
Yeah,
obviously behind Insidious. So we're on the
yeah. I think
Look
like
out for
today,
a
like
new
it's been 40
transformation.
years. We could beat it if someone really put the time into that type of transformation. But I think that has to be a practical element. And I think I heard someone say something really interesting. So even though what you're seeing in that transformation, the Howling one, isn't real, it's still so effective that you can't stop watching it.
No.
And I think with a good mixture of practical and digital effects, you could do something incredible.
You could. You really, really can. Yeah. I mean, I will never forget that transformation scene now that I've seen it.
Yeah. It's the grin. It's the grin it has. Like I always think Eddie Quest revels in being a werewolf.
I think the other thing too that kind of really made it particularly gnarly for me is that for most of the transformation, I can see Robert Picardo's face.
Yeah.
I can recognise that's Robert Picardo. That's not a man wearing a mask.
There's a lot of stuff just on his face bubbling away, and it's you see him just staring down.
Yeah, it's like I can clearly recognise the man behind the wolf, and that really kind of. I mean, similar in American Werewolf in London, like you don't necessarily
you
recognise.
see David in a lot of that.
You see David in a lot of it, but it's fundamentally human shaped. It's like that's particularly eerie for me. Yeah.
But that one's like you're looking at Robert Carter's face right up until the point where he's a wolf.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that it gives you that weird personal connection.
The connection.
With him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Great film.
Honestly, it's definitely
worth,
recommend it for sure.
Yeah, I think it's actually on Prime at the minute.
Yeah.
So check it out. It's interesting watching. Let us know what your favorite transformations are if they're not American Werewolf in London. Like, we all know that one's great, but tell us about other transformations that we...
Favourite werewolf movie?
Yeah, favourite werewolf movie or series. I know some like really good ones, like Bitten was a really interesting werewolf TV series that I watched a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love the werewolf in Being Human.
Yeah, I would love us to do a video on Silver Bullet, especially. That's a favourite of mine.
Yeah, I want to do Underworld. I love the werewolves in Underworld.
Yep. Well, I mean, obviously,
if you want to talk about a sexy movie,
we'll do American Werewolf in London at some point. We have to.
Yeah.
That's definitely on the way.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It just is. Everyone knows it is.
It is.
But this is the second werewolf movie we've done.
Yeah.
Obviously after Dog Soldiers.
After Dog Soldiers.
Which is just
Yes.
It's just brilliant, as anyone who watched it knows. But yeah, Christmas decks will be gone for next week.
Absolutely, because at that point we might be in mid-January.
Yeah.
So probably.
And I can't defend it anymore. But yeah, this is our goodbye to 2022.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is incredible. We will see you next week. We actually don't know what we're going to be doing next week because at this point we haven't filmed it, we haven't planned that far ahead.
We absolutely
we have absolutely no idea what it'll be.
No.
But
it'll be something good.
Oh, it'll be something good.
I can promise
we have
that.
so much planned.
We have a lot of
We have
ideas.
so much planned for 2023.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I absolutely can't wait. It could even be the Howling 2. Maybe. Definitely Leprechaun.
Return to Zombie Island.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Right. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and we will see you all through 2023.
Soon.